Everyone, the Identity Council, next slide, please, has a number of activities in addition to the mDL. Again, we'll walk through what we're doing with the mDL now, but we also have other activities that we're doing. One of the things that I would ask you as we're going through, please consider if you would participation in the alliance, and if you're relying parties, consider how are you thinking about forming your own groups up through your own associations on, if you would, key priorities and key use cases. One of the strategies that we're using is, in fact, encouraging relying parties to organize and think through, so when the capabilities will be generally available, they're positioned to consume. Okay, next slide. So we're coming through the webinar series that we're asking you to consider two things, not only to look at the white paper and the report, again, raise your awareness and education, but also to start the discussion of how do we move forward as a greater community into the future. You'll see the other two webinars coming up. The next one is important with regard to privacy and trust, as well as webinar 4 when we say, where do we move on from here? Okay, there's some other webinars that are coming up from the work that the Alliance is doing, and that'll be sometime in September. But this is a continual process of awareness and education. Next slide, please. The Alliance has been very active working with the relying party communities and focus. Again, it's from a priority from that community's perspective. What's their key use cases? Where do they see, real value of an mDL? Today, you've heard from 3 relying party communities, okay? There's many other communities out there, and we're working with those. If you're part of that community, we would love to talk to you a little bit more about what your community's use cases are. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're working on right now is how do we provide better guidance out to relying parties? What are the things that we need to do to help, if you would, better enterprise adoption, trust, interoperability between communities? What are some of the interaction modes that you've heard David talk about today? And how do we gain the inherent value of those ISO-based credentials across communities? Again, whether it was what Paula talked about with the law enforcement community, where Brandon was with regard to TSA, and again, as we walk through the different key use cases, there's a lot of value, but it requires us to participate. One of the other key pieces that we believe the next step is to work with NASCIO. So NASCIO is the National Association of State CIOs. States as relying parties have a significant role with regard to, if you would, the adoption of mDLs and providing ubiquity. Again, next slide, please. Where we're going into the future in the mobile driver's license ecosystem paper, Chapter 6 talks about a number of challenges going forward. We're grouping those challenges together. We have the initial, pieces that we're starting on. If your community is involved, if you want to participate, again, a great vehicle to do this is through the Alliance. If your own community is organizing, when you start thinking about your own either testing or certification issues, again, it's a great opportunity to start talking about moving forward. The standard will be completed at the end of 2020, most likely. Now with COVID, it's going to be probably first quarter 2021. But again, we want people to be positioned to say, how do they leverage this value? Okay, it's a really good piece of work. Next slide, please. So the ask that I have for you all today is support your organization or community's awareness. Okay, what's the real value of this? Consider in your own business practices and interactions. How would you consume this? How would you leverage this, the brand new capabilities for identity and age verifications? There is ability to really shape your business policies, practices to have a much better user experience. We want to work jointly with people, okay? Where can we can help you? We'll work with you. We have a great team. We have a very diverse team now of several organizations. I think there were over 60 various organizations that are playing. And again, they're both capability providers from the full spectrum of providers all the way through the various relying parties that they have representatives in with the core team, okay? If you're a community or community representative, please participate in the processes. It's a great way to leverage and to get good content back for your community. And again, it's a pretty good experience in being part of the Alliance. We have great people. There's great opportunities through it. Besides networking, it's this ability to say, what's the shared vision? We're in this really odd time now that with everybody being locked down for 60 days plus, how people think and conceive of ideas. Some ideas are really relevant, but they don't mature because the context isn't right. Whether it's a barrier now for people to do online education because they were forced to do that to complete this last semester, there's a lot of people looking at what's the value. As we start to say, what are the products and services in this environment that you just wish they were online? There's states that are really wishing that those pieces were online. This is a great bridging tool as we go into the future.